Voiceover, dramatic, engaging. Sometimes live television becomes the stage for moments no one will forget. And this was one of those mornings. The studio lights of Lorraine's show shone bright, reflecting off the polished floor and the glass panels behind her desk. The audience murmured with anticipation, sensing that today's interview would not be like the others. Lorraine, smiling politely but eyes sharp. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we have a very special guest, Meghan Markle. Applause filled the studio. Meghan entered gracefully, her composure flawless. Yet there was a subtle tension in her shoulders. Meghan, warmly, "Thank you for having me, Lorraine." But Lorraine's smile didn't fully reach her eyes. Something in Meghan's previous interviews had left her skeptical, and she was ready to challenge her guest on points that had sparked controversy. "Lorraine, Meghan, you've been in the headlines constantly, sometimes praised, sometimes criticized. Let's talk about some of the claims you made in your recent book." The air shifted. The audience leaned forward. Meghan, carefully, "I wrote about my experiences honestly. It's a personal perspective, nothing more." Lorraine, raising an eyebrow, firm. "But Meghan, critics argue that some of these experiences are exaggerated. There are many who say the portrayal of your family life, and even some public figures, paints a very one-sided picture. How do you respond to that?" A faint hush passed through the studio. Meghan's smile flickered. Meghan, "Lorraine, I believe everyone has their own perception. I can only share mine." Lorraine, leaning forward, voice controlled but sharp. "Perception is one thing, Meghan. But when the world sees your words as attacks on people who cannot respond directly on your terms, it becomes complicated. Are you aware of the impact your statements can have?" Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly, her composed exterior beginning to show cracks of defensiveness. Meghan, "Of course, I understand impact, but my goal was never to harm anyone." Lorraine, cutting in with intensity. "And yet many feel harmed. That's the discussion we need to have. How much responsibility do you take for the fallout from your revelations?" The audience could feel the tension build like a storm. Cameras panned to capture every subtle shift in body language. A slight twitch of Meghan's jaw, Lorraine's steely gaze, the hands of the producer fidgeting with notes. Voiceover. Live TV can bring the best and worst out of people. And sometimes, the truth isn't gentle. It's a confrontation that no one can escape. Lorraine, leaning closer, voice rising slightly. "Meghan, let's be honest. You've positioned yourself as a victim, yet some of your claims have stirred enormous backlash. Isn't it time to address the contradictions in your story?" Meghan's calm demeanor wavered. Meghan, firmly, "Contradiction? I've shared facts as they happened. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions about them." Lorraine, sharply, leaning in. "But facts can be selective, Meghan, and when selective facts are shared on a global platform, you have to own the consequences. Don't you think it's fair for the public to question your narrative?" Meghan glanced at the audience, who were watching every syllable. Meghan, "Lorraine, I've been transparent. My story is mine. I can't control how others interpret it." Lorraine, leaning back, voice cold. "Transparency isn't just about telling your side. It's about accountability. And right now, Meghan, you've avoided it." A beat of silence fell. The tension was palpable. Even the crew stopped moving. Meghan, gaining composure, but clearly frustrated. "I've answered your questions. I stand by my book. I've endured criticism, speculation, and judgment, and I will not apologize for my truth." Lorraine, voice rising, almost cutting through the silence. "Truth, Meghan, is complicated when it's presented selectively, and that's what the public sees. Someone portraying events for personal gain, while others are left to defend themselves in silence." Meghan's jaw tightened. The argument became a delicate balance of civility and confrontation. Lorraine precise, deliberate, and unflinching. Meghan firm, defensive, but visibly rattled. Lorraine, leaning forward, unwavering. "Millions watch your every word. Millions judge. If you can't account for your narrative, then perhaps it's time to reflect on the responsibility of your platform." Meghan inhaled sharply, trying to maintain composure. Meghan, voice softening but resolute. "I reflect every day, and I will continue to tell my story even if it challenges others' comfort zones." Voiceover. And in that studio, millions watched the clash of public persona and journalistic scrutiny. Neither woman willing to back down. The argument was raw, intense, and unrelenting. The kind of moment that goes down in live television history. Lorraine leaned back in her chair, folding her hands deliberately. Lorraine, calm but cutting. Meghan, it's clear you are proud of your narrative, but pride and accountability are not the same. You can tell your story, yes, but you must recognize the repercussions. And that, my dear, is where the truth meets responsibility. The audience sat in stunned silence. Cameras captured every twitch, every blink. Meghan quietly, almost resigned. Lorraine, I respect your perspective. I hope people understand mine. Lorraine, leaning forward, final words piercing. Respect is earned not just by words, Meghan, but by owning them fully. If you cannot face the fallout, then perhaps you need to reconsider how your story is told. A faint murmur passed through the audience. Some nodded, some whispered. The tension that had filled the studio began to dissipate. Voiceover. By the end of the segment, Lorraine had delivered a firm message. Truth and accountability are inseparable. Meghan, poised but visibly affected, had been called to reflect on the weight of her words. As the show cut to a commercial, social media erupted. Clips of the confrontation were shared, debated, and dissected by millions. News outlets highlighted Lorraine's unflinching challenge and Meghan's composure under pressure. Lorraine, to the camera, smiling professionally. That's all for today's discussion. Remember, our responsibility is to ask tough questions. The answers? Well, the audience will decide. Voiceover, concluding dramatic. Live television can expose truths, challenge narratives, and reveal the human behind the headlines. And sometimes, it's the confrontation, sharp, honest, and relentless, that leaves the most lasting impression. Closing line for YouTube. And if you think everyone should be held accountable for their words, give this video a like and subscribe. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it's always worth watching.